What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back again with another video. I hope you guys had an awesome holiday and an awesome new year. This video is a bit of a special treat. As you know, the OCG has been having these no ban list tournaments where basically every card is at 3. I had a previous video that sort of blew up out of nowhere. We covered a previous no ban list tournament that happened, I believe, in the OCG in Japan. And today, it seems that we had another tournament somewhere in China or Taiwan that wasn't nearly as popular, but there was a decent turnout, and the results were actually astounding. This format is starting to get a little more and more popular, and decks are evolving. Now, before we dive into the deck list right away, I just do want to give a shout out to the Facebook page, Yu-Gi-Oh! Intro to Expert Players, who I believe also runs the Road of the King page, so definitely check them out because they're the ones that actually brought this to my attention, and actually have a link originally to the Bilibili page where the Chinese duelist actually goes over the actual tournament with his experience having been there. So I'll link those below. Definitely check them out. Diving right in, we can already see, we knew from the previous video that TEARLAMENTS were actually a force to be reckoned with in this format. You would think that a traditional format with 3 of everything is probably like an FDK format, some kind of Exodia, some kind of burn, you know, having all the broken cards. We have 3 Pot of Greed, 3 Graceful Charity, 3 of any card that you can think of that's been banned since the history, since the conception of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! But no, TEARLAMENTS for some reason are still on top. The engine is just so broken, and having a bunch of hand traps in this game means that, you know, the existence of FTK decks are okay. They're sort of kept in check by the sheer staggering amount of hand traps that we do have. We did see decks like Magical Scientist in the previous tournament actually get top 8. We can see that there are 5 Magical Scientist FTKs. We also see that there are some other strange OTK decks, maybe some kind of Numeron OTK, which is very strange. I guess the Master Duel players are coming out of the woodwork. But we do see here, I know it's a little hard to read, we did have 16 TEARLAMENTS decks as the most popular deck of this tournament. So it's to be expected. A lot of people were kind of building around TEARLAMENTS after having seen the results of the previous tournament. So by no means is the format solved, but having that tournament already passed by and being able to look at the logistics and the data of the deck recipes that were already doing well in that tournament allowed us to evolve and take this format even further. We also have something very surprising here in the form of some Dragon Link decks. You can see here that there's a Striker Dragon, which is a pure Dragon Link deck, as well as an LP at 6 copies of this LP deck. This mysterious LP deck, which we will be diving into, that was actually a little bit mind-blowing, and the results of this one particular card that took the tournament by storm is actually going to be quite alarming. If you guys are, once you guys see this, you guys are not going to believe it. We did see other decks as well, Adamantipator, as well as some Blue Eyes decks, which I assume is some kind of FTK deck. Bear in mind, we're not talking about Blue Eyes Beatdown. It's probably some kind of draw engine with the Blue Eyes cards. As we know in the past, Blue Eyes has been an insane draw engine mixed in certain decks like Exodia as well, allowing you to draw your entire deck to FTK your opponent with cards like Trade-In, cards like Consonance. So I assume that these decks were somewhere in the realm of FTK or OTK. In the top 4, you can see that there were 3 TEARLAMENT decks as well as 1 KASHTIRA deck. So let's just dive into the deck recipes because this video is going to be rather long given that we do have 8 deck recipes to go over as opposed to 4 in the previous video. At top 8, the first deck we have is pure ZOODIAC. This was a bit of a surprise because obviously it didn't perform that well in the past no ban list tournament that we had, but in the a couple of years ago when we did have a no ban list tournament in the OCG, this deck actually was by and far the first most popular deck in that format before TEARLAMENTS were released. You know, needless to say, like summoning 1 Zoo monster and being able to mount a Trident or a Zeus onto the board with a plethora of hand traps seems to be pretty good in this format. So without further ado, it seems that they are running a super low ZOODIAC count. You can see here, and the speaker in the video actually mentioned they're only playing 3 ZOODIAC Rapier and 3 Barrage. They didn't play any of the other Zoodiacs, and this actually caused them to brick in their top 8 match, so they were not able to see any copies of their Zoo engine to actually be able to play the game. But you can see here, this is just an abomination. They're actually playing some kind of ISHIZU fairy engine at the minimum, playing obviously the rank 4, the level 4s to allow us to make rank 4 plays. Bear in mind, there are ZOODIAC XYZs that are generic, like Check-in 9, 2 level 4 monsters. So we can actually tap into that engine just by using 2 level 4 monsters, including like a Keldo, just a Keldo and a Medora. Keldo discarding Medora and then adding another copy of itself or another Medora normal summoning will get you into the Zoo combo. We can instantly go into Broad Bowl to search a copy of Rapier and then overlay into Dryden. And it's kind of funny that they're only playing 1 copy of each, but bear in mind, the extra deck is very tight because we are playing cards like Ghost Reaper in the main deck. You can see here the rest of the cards are purely hand traps. So we have 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Shifter. This is another very popular card in this format because it seems that Shifter is just a broken card, as we all know, in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it just carries over. Kelbeth being another hand trap. We have 3 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma. Another very, very good option, especially in this powerful format going second. There are a lot of monster effects that are just game ending on their own that we just want to shut down by all means possible. 3 Ghost Motor and 2 Bell, and then 1 copy of each of the Bestials, Baldrake, as well as Druisworm. I guess Magnamud's just not fast enough, given that you do search in the end phase, but Baldrake does have that added ability to potentially negate a summon. You can see here there are a lot of hand traps. I think we're along the lines of 22 hand traps, 23 hand traps, and then we have a bunch of spell cards that are powerful. Just to fill in the gaps here for consistency, 3 Pot of Greed, 3 Grace for Charity, obviously, so we can draw into ZOODIAC Rapier and then potentially Barrage. Bear in mind that ZOODIAC Rapier does have the ability to special summon another copy of itself by detaching from the Beast Warrior XYZ ZOODIAC that it does go into, so we can actually go into some potential link plays like Fairjet. And then in the side deck is really interesting. 3 Ghost Sister just to gain life points in time, I assume. This is one of the first times I've seen this sided in the OCG, so it's kind of funny that they're catching on to this now. Confiscation and Forceful Sentry. I assume you don't really want to keep these in your main deck because going second in this format can be a death sentence if you do not draw your hand traps, and these cards are only really good going first. So I assume this is for going first, as well as the Imperial Order, and then we have some go second cards in the form of Red Reboot, because everyone knows that Red Reboot plus the ZOODIAC is just game, because you go right into Zeus. To pair with the Ghost Reapers, we do have a copy of Kalos. We have the standard Zoo cards. I assume they're playing a low count for Dryden and Broadbow because this format's so fast-paced that often games might even be decided by the span of 1 or 1.5 turns. We do have 1 copy of the other ones, 2 copies of Chakinine. I assume this is to have some sort of recursion, as well as going into Zeus, and then Utopic Future and Draco Future as well. A copy of Rongo Minad, Heroic Champion. I assume this is for Ghost Reaper as well, because maybe they assumed some people were actually playing a variant of this, because there's obviously no way, to my immediate eyes, to be able to make this, because it does require level 4 warrior monsters. Abyss Dweller generic as well, and then a copy of HALQ of Fabrax just to potentially go into some of these hand traps, I assume, and then make some plays that way, or just for a Ghost Reaper, because a lot of these decks do actually revolve around HALQ. Moving on. Okay, we have, this is an abomination, but it appears to be some sort of Dragon Link deck that was fairly popular. And the first thing that you can see up here in the corner is Victory Dragon. This card, without going into spoilers, is a powerhouse in this format. People did not know this card in the previous tournament. No one was playing this, at least in our top decks. We did not see the existence of this card. This card, for those of you that do not know, this card, to tribute summon this card, use tribute summon 3 dragon monsters. If this card attacks your opponent directly and reduces their life points to 0, you win the match. So, this is like the match winners. Like, a lot of the world's prize cards have been similar to this. For those of you that are kind of newer to the competitive game, it's actually best 2 out of 3 in a match. So, a duelist actually has to win 2 duels out of the 3 in order to win that match. But what Victory Dragon does is it ignores the logic of the entire game. If this card attacks your opponent directly in the one duel and reduces their life points to 0, you win the entire match. So you do not play game 2 or game 3. You win both games by one attack off Victory Dragon. And you're probably wondering why they're playing this and how they're going into this. Well, it just happens that if they do play a Dragon Engine, you can actually get Victory Dragon to the graveyard and then use the effect of Starliege Safe Fort to banish itself to target one level 8 light or dark dragon monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. In other words, Victory Dragon. And then from there, you can normal summon it and attack your opponent at life points and reduce it to 0 and win the entire match, which is absolutely insane. You can see this deck is very reliant on that engine, trying to get into Victory Dragon as quick as possible. Cards like Eclipse Wyvern being able to banish Victory Dragon. So again, we are searching it and then adding it back using cards like Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon. This Dragon Link deck obviously abuses a lot of the existing cards that we have, like White Dragon and Black Dragon, as well as a small rocket engine without quick launch, which is kind of interesting. We also abuse cards in the extra deck like HALQ Fibrex, Link Cross, which you guys already know was banned because it was insane being able to spawn tokens. And then you can actually go into Reaper-Docus. This deck doesn't play it, but the other ones do, with the less dragon count, to order to modulate the types so they become dragons. And from there, you can actually go into your LP and then have Protect Your Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman point into the same spot to allow you to special summon any of your dragons, including Eclipse Wyvern or Starliege Safe Fort, so you can search the Victory Dragon, which is absolutely insane. We do also have broken cards that are already banned in the game and have been banned immediately, like Ib, the World Chalice Justicar, after one format because it was so broken. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can actually special summon one World Chalice monster from your deck, which includes World Chalice Guard Dragon, which is a dragon allowing you to go into your Guard Dragon plays. So, a common thing that you'd see is a lot of one-card starters. So we do have Gofu as well as Glow Up Bulb. For example, with Glow Up Bulb, you can normal summon it, make Link Karibo, bring back the Glow Up Bulb, make HALQ Fibrex, special summon this gentleman over here, Blackwing Steam the Cloak, which is banned in the OCG, but just came back in the TCG. And then from there, you can link off the HALQ Fibrex into Link Cross, allowing you to spawn 2 tokens. 2 level 1 tokens with the addition of our level 3 tuner friend over here allows us to go right into Ib, the World Chalice Justiciar. And then from there, we can summon another token off of Steam the Cloak. And then we can link off Ib as well as the Link Cross and then go into some more plays, eventually allowing you to special summon the copy of Chalice Guard Dragon from your deck, as well as add a copy of World Legacy Guard Dragon, because you are able to add a World Legacy card when it is summoned, and you can kind of see how that spawns into a plethora of dragon plays, including Edgar Payne, LP, Pisty, and then eventually allowing you to search Victory Dragon, normal summon it, and then just end the game on the spot. We also have Topologic Gumbler Dragon allowing you to discard as well. So you can see here they are playing a bunch of hand traps as well, including Dimension Shifter, which is insane given that it probably nukes this deck just as bad. But they're probably thinking if you're going second, you're very unfavored in this format, so you have to stop your opponent by all means possible. And then from there, we are still able to make some plays using cards like Blackwing Go Through the Shadow, just start generic or Link Dragon plays without having to go into our graveyard, because we do have other cards like Graceful Charity and 3 Pot of Greed to draw into engine starter cards like Gofu. We're also maxing out on a bunch of cards. 60 cards is insane to me because they're not even playing grass. We're playing 3 Called by the Grave, 3 Confiscation, 3 Delinquent Duo, which is insane given that a lot of cards do activate in the graveyard, but I can see how this pairs very well with Dimension Shifter, given that on your turn you can Delinquent Duo and pretty much end the game on the spot, given that they've already committed it into Shifter, and then they'll be down another 2 cards. Painful choice. Again, this allows you to easily go into Victory Dragon by foolishing these dragons, which will proc off their effect and then banish Victory Dragon, allowing you to add it back with the effect of Safe Fort. Forceful Sentry, another really good card against hand traps, stopping your opponent. 2 copies of Tactics, and then the 1-of field spells and the cards that we can search off our engines. Yeah, side deck, a lot of players are actually playing Nibiru, which is really, really interesting. This seems to be a very go-to card to stop these broken plays into Victory Dragon that always revolve around 5+ summons and don't always end on an Omni Negate because we are committing resources in order to search for that Victory Dragon. Gamma as well being a really good card going second. Gemini Imps is interesting. I could see this card being very good against Confiscation as well as Delinquent Duo, negating it entirely, allowing you to replenish your hand by drawing another card. Going first, we have Imperial Order and then Madness Emptiness. Extra deck is just a mishmash of all the Dragon engines, powerful Link 4s, and then also Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Moving on, we have another top 8 deck. Surprise, another variant of the Dragon Link deck. This deck is a little more interesting because we are playing other starters like Draconet as well as Mathematician, being able to Foolish either a copy of Eclipse Wyvern or a copy of Carven Nedon, which allows you to banish it to special summon a level 7 or lower dragon normal monster, which equivalent to Galaxy Serpent in this case, allowing you to go into HALQ Fibrax, into Steam the Cloak, and then go off into your Link Cross plays into Ib, like we mentioned in the previous deck recipe. And then from there, you are able to go into your full combo for the Dragon Link board, potentially searching out Victory Dragon, adding it back to your hand, and potentially ending the match on the spot, which is still crazy for me to think about. They are also playing Overraptor because of the fact that Carbonetron is a dinosaur that can be Foolish with the effect of Overraptor, allowing you to do essentially the same play that we just went over with a Mathematician. And then so on and so forth. We see a bunch of other broken cards that we already went over in the previous couple of decks. Confiscation, Painful Choice, Forceful Sentry. Hand Destruction is good in this format, it appears. We're also siding 3 copies of Delinquent Duo, I assume, for going first to make the deck a little more consistent going second, as well as you don't really want to have this against like a Tearlaments deck. Another interesting thing is Ghost Reaper and then Mourner. They're not even playing Kick Hellos, which is kind of surprising. But we also have 3 copies of XYZ Encore. This is a very good card. Target 1 face-up XYZ monster your opponent controls that has XYZ material, detach all materials from it and return to the extra deck. And then cards cannot be activated in response to this card's activation. So it's essentially a quick play Dark Ruler. Being the turn player, you can actually fire it off as turn player priority. So if your opponent does play broken XYZs in this format like Shockmaster or Elder Entity Afterthought, which essentially shuts down your entire turn. I guess not Shockmaster because it procs on their turn, but Elder Entity Afterthought or Ptolemaeus, you can immediately activate this as turn player, so they cannot go into the Azathoth and then negate your effects off of Ptolemaeus. So yes, and then extra deck kind of generic, again, broken Dragon Link cards. We are playing Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon as well to Foolish a bunch of dragons and then search Victory Dragon, and then Ib and Baron de Fleur over Hot Red. Moving on, top 8. Another Dragon Link deck. Surprise, surprise. Dragon Link is very popular in this format. We are seeing another copy of Victory Dragon. This card is just taking over the format by storm. One thing I forgot to note in the previous deck is that your opponent cannot surrender in the OCG. That's one thing that distinguished the TCG from the OCG. In the TCG, you could surrender when your opponent attacked with Victory Dragon. You say, I surrender the duo, so I go on to game 2. But in OCG, you cannot do that because the rules state that both players must agree to one player conceding. So if you are trying to concede against a Victory Dragon, your opponent can say, no, I do not agree. I'm going to keep playing and make sure this attack off Victory Dragon reduces your life points to 0. So that's why this card is playable in the OCG. I should have covered that earlier, but now you guys know. Moving on, we have two copies of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, White Dragon Wyvern Burster, and then a plethora of our dragons again, along with Darkest Dragon Diabolos, which happens to be a dragon that also could be annoying for your opponent, as well as, ripping cards out of your opponent's hand. We are playing starters again, Draconet being able to special summon itself, as well as Mathematician to go into the Carbon Net on play. Pretty crazy if you happen to ask me. What else do we have here? 3 copies of Gofu, again, crazy shenanigans. We have Steam the Cloak off of the HALQ. We have Sideframe as their only hand trap, which is interesting. They are playing, again, Confiscation, Forceful Sentry, Painful Choice. 2 copies of Hot and Greedy, which is interestingly weird. But we are siding a 3rd copy for going first. You can see also the XYZ Encore coming in, as well as the Delinquent Duel. We have Ghost Reaper again, because I guess they assumed that Dragon Link was going to be a contender. We don't even see Kick House in the side or the extra deck again. Maxi, and then Shifter. Shifter again is just so crazy that I guess you are forced to play that card. Yeah, very, very interesting. Draco on that going into the Serpent as well to start off your HALQ plays. Moving on into the top 4, a little deeper, we're seeing for the first time Tearlaments. Obviously, they were doing good because we know that 3 were in the top 4, as well as Victory Dragon in Tearlaments. Somehow, this card meandered its way into the deck. You can see here they are playing a smaller Dragon Engine with Seyfried, Redox, and Destrudo. I assume there's some kind of combo with Redox being able to discard itself, potentially to revive something from your graveyard by discarding another copy of an Earth Fairy, and then going off into your Dragon plays, so you are able to go into the Victory Dragon. You can see here that they are playing the standard tier lineup as well as the ISHIZUs with the copies of Herald of Orange Light. And then there's no Pot of Greed again. We realize that drawing cards is not as good. When going first, we're already in an advantage playing cards like Painful Choice. And then going second, Pot of Greed doesn't really do anything. So surprisingly, one of the best cards in the history of the game has been cut down to the simple Painful Choice and Graceful Charities instead. And there's only 2 copies of Graceful Charity. I'm fairly certain they only played 2 and not 3 for some odd reason. Lava Level Chain. This, I assume, is the way that they are foolishing for the Star Liege, and then potentially making a second copy to foolish that Victory Dragon if we didn't happen to mill it off of our tier plays, one or the other. Again, we can just use Lava Level Chain to dump the other piece that we're missing to bring back the Victory Dragon. From there, we can use Destrudo as well as Redox to get 3 dragons on board. You can see here there's another link to Dragon Monster, 2 effect monsters that you can go into generically, and then also special summon potentially another Dragon Monster from our hand, so we contribute 3 Dragon Monsters for Victory Dragon to swing that match-ending attack. Lava Golem, Ghost Reaper, and then Drone Lockbird seem to be favored side deck cards in this format, and we are seeing some back row removal as well in the form of Harpy's Feather Duster and Evenly Matched. And then we also have Deltaros to go into with Polymias. We have the Elder Entity Azathoth as well as the Shockmaster play we covered in the previous video. This deck can actually put up oppressive boards going first by locking down your opponent. Moving on to third place. Well, I guess top 4 because they didn't play it out. Another copy of Victory Dragon in this Tearlaments deck. It just does not stop. We're seeing like over, I think, 6 copies of Victory Dragon in this top 8. This card seems to be plaguing this format, which is crazy. We do have another copy of Tearlaments Shiren, Tearlaments Havness, being a Tearlaments deck, as well as a copy of Shadal Beast to go into Winda, which I assume is a very backbreaking play. Imagine having this milling Beast and then going into Winda on your opponent's turn. That is just game ending. We are seeing still the standard copies of the ISHIZU cards, as well as Maxi, Herald of Orange Light, and Herald of Green Light as well, to stop the broken spell cards that we know are prevalent in this format. We can see here this spell card lineup is only instant fusion. There are no broken cards like Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity, which have since instead been relegated to the side deck for going first. I assume because going second, these cards are absolutely useless. We also siding Super Polymerization with Starving Venom, and then some of our XYZs that we could not fit into the extra deck because of the fact that we are playing Reaper Docus and Guard Dragon LP and Protector Whelp. So they're going a different route with Omni Dragon Brotar, which I assume is a little better here, given that you don't have to play a lot more Dragon Bricks. You can actually go into Brotar somehow, bring it back onto the field, assuming you mill it, and then from there we are able to actually search for the copy of Victory Dragon by discarding a card to target itself. And then we can go into LP, which I assume we can also make a Reaper Docus to make another copy of Dragon, any monster it points to. And then from there go into Protector Whelp, tribute summon the Brotar, the Whelp, and the LP into the Victory Dragon to swing for the match-ending attack. What else do we have in second place? Well, we have a Tearlaments Abomination, 60 cards. You can see here, we're also playing KASHTIRA Fenrir, 2 copies of the Shadals to go into Winda. And then we are playing the broken spell cards, Graceful Charity, Painful Choice, Instant Fusion, Pearl Rhino, And then also 3 copies of Lawn Mowing, aka That Grass Looks Greener, which allows us to foolish a huge chunk of our deck. But I assume this could have backfired against them in Top Cut, given that the previous decks we saw were even 50 cards or greater, meaning that grass could just be a dead card. We also see Exchange of the Spirit and Gravekeeper's Trap in this deck, and 3 copies of Forceful Sentry. They only played a 14-card side deck, which is very, very odd, but they were playing Nibiru, again, as we went over, being a destructive force to be reckoned with. No cards to support the existence of Victory Dragon in this deck, thank goodness, but we do have some impressive going first cards like Imperial Order, Managee's Emptiness, and then Spear Mode for going second. Extra deck is rather standard. No Level O Chain plays or Shockmaster or Ptolemaeus. We're just playing straight tiers and hoping to resolve our powerful spell cards and win. It apparently did them well enough that they could land in second place. And then in first place, we have KASHTIRA with, surprise, everyone's favorite Victory Dragon. Insane. KASHTIRA somehow won with Victory Dragon. Again, with the Brotar combo we talked about in the previous third place deck list. Going into Reproductus, allowing you to go into LP, search for Victory Dragon off of Brotar, go into Pisti with the other one, and then Tribute Summon the Whelp, the Pisti, the LP, and maybe the Brotar in some combination to summon Victory Dragon and attack for game, which is what happened in the finals. Apparently, based on the Billy Billy video, they said that the second place won game 1, and then in game 2, this KASHTIRA deck swung for a match with Victory Dragon. They are playing, obviously, Shifter, Drone, Lockbird, a lot of cards to stop the opponent from playing, and then just broken consistency cards like Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, and even Imperm to stop the opponent's card effects from going through. In the side deck, you see we also have Confiscation going first. We have a lot of back row remove with Giant Trunade and Harpy's Feather Duster and Mystic Mine, and then we have the standard extra deck with also the addition of Draco Sack, which can instantly go into Reproductus and then turn the token into a dragon, allowing you to go into one of these guard dragons into LP, and then with another monster you can actually make Buster Whelp, allowing you to special summon Brotar from your deck, allowing you to add Victory Dragon, which is also game. So that's about it in this video. I know it was rather long. I apologize for that. What do you guys think about this format? I think OCG, they said they might make it a weekly thing, so I will definitely cover this more often. But if you guys like this, rate, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on how this format could get any more degenerate in the comments below. And we will see you all in the next video. Deuces.